weekly basis. Your participation is important.
Hello, good morning, and welcome to yet another edition of The Burning Issue. It's a Tuesday edition. We are very grateful. It's the 1st of July, 2025, and we sure hope that you are having a good time wherever you are. The weather looks a bit chilly in Lusaka. I hope anywhere else it is the same. If it's not, well, just make sure that you are dressed for the weather. Otherwise, welcome once again to the Tuesday edition of The Burning Issue. I am your host, Zachariah Banda. And remember that we are also live on our partner radio stations. We are live on Tuesdaye FM 90.7 in Mansa, covering the rest of Bwalya province. Thank you very much for having us. And of course, live on ZFM in Kapiri on 100.3 FM. We are very grateful, ZFM. Also, that is in Ndola, covering the rest of the Copper Belt on 99. And Central Province is well covered for. We are live on Spice in Lusaka and the surrounding areas. It's 89.9. And later on in the course of the program, I'll give you, our listener, an opportunity to call in and interact with our guest. And we are also live, don't forget, on our Facebook page. Make use of it as a comment or indeed a question for our guest. And the Facebook page is 5FM Radio Zambia. Also, look out for our YouTube channel as well. You can follow this conversation live on our YouTube channel, and that is 5FM Zambia. All right, so our guest today is Mr. Frank Bwalya. He is United Party for National Development Director General for Media in the Presidential Support System. It's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much. I am happy that you have given us this opportunity again to continue as presidential support systems, to continue interacting with the people of Zambia. I posted on my Facebook page that I would be on this radio station, and I added something to the effect that democracy is noisy for a good reason.
Indeed.
For a good reason.
Right.
Wherever there is democracy, there will be discussions,
absolutely,
dialogue, and so on. And this is healthy. This is healthy for any democracy. It's healthy for our country. So I'm happy to be here, and I wish to say hello. I don't want to say good morning,
indeed,
for obvious reasons.
To
say hello to everyone that is monitoring this program.
Yeah. And of course, the reason why it's not a good morning, it hasn't been good mornings every time we woke up. We're still not seeing them to be very good until such a time. It's all because of the 60th former president, the 60th president of Zambia's demise in Edgar Lungu. And I think that we are, I think now in the third, almost fourth week, all right, that we have not actually settled in as far as where his final resting place will be. But the matter is in court. But suffice to say, the impasse is affecting everybody. And I know that it has come with a lot of views around it. Others have called it political. Others have said it's spiritual. Others, all sorts have come up. But let's hear it from you. How should this have been handled by both government and family?
I would like to respond to that question or to comment on this matter by asking Zambians to remember what happened during the 10th memorial of late President Michael Chilufya-Sata.
Which took place last year.
Last year.
Right.
People need to remember what happened during that time and to retell that story. And then be able to see whether there are similarities, whether we can draw parallels between what happened that time and what has happened this time around. I personally think that there are a lot of parallels that can be drawn. Firstly, there was a group of people, the Patriotic Front, who strongly felt that President Michael Chilufya-Sata 10th anniversary needed to be celebrated by the party, the political party that he belonged to, the political party that he formed.
And it has always been the case. Until last year. It has always been the case.
Until last year, which was the 10th.
Right.
And we know very well the practice. There may be no law, but we know the practice in this country that the 10th anniversary is organized by the state. So what happened during that time is playing out, or has played out this time around. They wanted to have their own memorial in a manner clearly to exclude President Hakainde Hichilema as Republican president. So initially, we had the announcement that the memorial would be at the Cathedral of the Holy Cross, which is not a Catholic institution. The family behind the scenes and government discussed and agreed that the memorial would be at St. Ignatius Catholic Church, a Catholic church, of course.
Yeah.
And
That was
Sata
his parish.
was a Catholic.
Yes. And that was his parish.
It was agreed. Later on, information was passed on to government that the president will not be allowed to speak at that occasion. The information we have is that the family did not accept that. And of course, government didn't accept it. That's how come we saw now that taking back the memorial to the Cathedral Cross. Other people felt that was a mistake because, of course, Mr. Sata was Catholic. At the end of the day, we had now another parallel memorial at the Cathedral of the Child Jesus, which is a Catholic cathedral. And they happened on the same day. And the confusion was there for everyone to see. However, that event can still be described as successful for one reason, that the family of President Michael Chilufya Sata knew what was right. They refused to exclude the president, who was a sitting president, and they agreed as a family to compromise on the fact that President Sata was Catholic. They agreed to compromise and decided to go to a non-Catholic institution, a church that is a Cathedral of the Holy Cross, and the president was there. The dignitaries, various people, including some senior PF members who believed that was the right thing to do. They were present. All of us who worked with President Sata, who loved him as our president. I know some people may say that, no, Frank Bwalya, you can't say that, and so on. I was arrested several times campaigning for President Michael Chilufya Sata and the PF ahead of 2011. And Zambians should not deliberately ignore that. And we worked very, very closely with President Michael Chilufya Sata. The convention that PF had at Mulungushi Rock of Authority in Kabwe ahead of the 2011 general elections, which of course Mr. Sata won, I was in the electoral commission of the party, and I played a very big role. People like Dr. Guy Scott, people like Honorable Chenda, people like even my brother KBF, they would remember the role that I played and everything that we did. Of course, later on, I decided to leave the PF. We formed Alliance for a Better Zambia and so on. But the point I'm trying to make is that we contributed to PF. We loved President Michael Chilufya Sata. We may not have been, at the time he died, still in PF, but that does not take away, it doesn't take away that relationship and the love that we had with him, despite the political differences.
Right.
So the family solved that problem. They solved the problem. The parallel memorial went ahead. There was a bishop that said that mass, who I am on record, and there are some Catholics who really hate me for this. I'm on record. And I wouldn't shy away from repeating the point that Bishop Dr. Alec Banda could have been the one to solve that problem by asking PF to just go to the memorial organized by the government at the Cathedral of the Holy Cross, and then later on have a mass for President Sata, 10th memorial, that was going to be celebrated by Bishop Alec Banda. And that problem would have been over. But because of not advising some PF senior officials as such, we had that confusion. It was a big confusion. It was also a big embarrassment, a very big embarrassment. This time around, we have a family, the family of President Edgar Lungu, who some members of the PF has described as abashatumpa, compared to what happened during the 10th memorial. Some members of the PF, it's there on social media, think that Muri family abasata mwali baba tumpa because they allowed the memorial, the 10th memorial for President Sata to be handled by the state, which is totally wrong. And the former First Lady, Mayobana Kaseba, came in and in a very, very sober and prudent manner said, please go ahead. Let us mourn President Lungu without insulting President Sata, because that was actually a direct insult on President Sata. The same man who formed the party that today they strongly want to defend and to champion its cause. So there are a lot of similarities. And when we look back as Zambians, maybe we should not be surprised that we are in this space in terms of the impasse over the burial of President Lungu. Maybe we shouldn't be surprised with hindsight. Now, there are some people who have been saying that this government is cruel, HH is cruel, they have sued the widow. This is meant to play on the minds of simple people. I've been giving some people this example, that if I happened to be a child of some rich man and that man dies, I may have been born from outside of wedlock, of wedlock. And my brothers and sisters born within the house, not out of wedlock, inform me out of love that actually I was included on the will and certain things are entitled to me. Those things are not given to me, and I try everything possible, it doesn't work, I may go to court. And when I go to court, of course, I will sue the widow. Now, some people in the family, in the village, may want to paint me black as a very, very bad person by simply saying, alitwala bamukamfirwa ku koti ulya mwana. Imagine, alitwala bamukamfirwa ku koti abale losha watwala ku koti. That young man has taken the widow to court, has dragged the widow to court when she's supposed to be mourning, and so on and so forth, playing on simple minds, because simple minds are not being given the context within which this young man has decided to drag the widow to court. If the government had not gone to court on behalf of more than 20 million Zambians, well, maybe if you remove those who are for supporting the idea of burying President Lungu in South Africa, you may not say more than 20 million, but let me simply say millions of Zambians who have spoken in no uncertain terms that the right thing to do would be to bury President Edgar Lungu in Zambia, give him a dignified send-off as one of our former leaders. Not just an ordinary leader, but a leader that rose to the position of Republican president. If that were not the case, there's no way government would have sued the widow, children, and so on. That would not have happened. It's because of the disagreement, the impasse. And in an effort to protect public interest, as the Attorney General made it clear, then the government went to court. Our prayer as UPND, our prayer, the prayer of many Zambians, and we're listening to people speak, is that this window will provide the opportunity, a chance for the government and the family. We want to underscore the family to sit down and come up with an amicable solution. And that said, allow me to re-echo some of the things that were said on Sunday interview by my older brother, Kaweche, the son of late President Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, and of course, Ambassador George Zulu, regarding the appeal they made to the family. In the SATA 10th memorial debacle, that was solved by the family. It's the family that said, no, we can't exclude the president. We can't stop the president from speaking. He's a Republican president, and the government has the mandate to organize the 10th memorial. So President HH has to speak. Those who don't like him for political reasons, even for personal reasons, too bad. But he's Republican president, he has to be there and he should speak. We continue to pray that the family will see this wisdom and save the situation. Bring back President Lungu to Zambia. Allow President HH to attend the funeral and speak at the funeral. And whatever issues remain unresolved, as Kaweche said, as many Zambians are said, can be looked at thereafter. My brother Makebi Zulu has said that they have an opportunity, meaning that it was a good thing that government went to court because it gives them the opportunity to tell the story of President Edgar Lungu, what he went through, what he did for this country, and so on. I want to repeat that the court case is not the right platform to champion the legacy, the cause of President Edgar Lungu. It's not the right platform. It's a wrong platform. It's a platform of acrimony. The right platform is here, and not even during the funeral service itself, but thereafter. But thereafter, that's the right platform. Everyone knows what President Edgar Lungu did for this country. And this is the time that we should listen to the wisdom of our culture. That when we have a situation where somebody dies, you don't talk about their mistakes, you don't talk about their sinfulness, you don't talk about their trespasses. You celebrate what is good about them. They are gone, and we wish them well. We pray that they will rest in eternal peace. And that can be done here in Zambia. That's the right platform. That is the right context within which to do that. So I also want to
but before you move further, let me interrupt a bit. Do you really think that the impasse has been motivated politically?
It's very clear.
How so?
That it has been motivated by political considerations. In the same way, the 10th memorial of President Michael Chilufya Sata, that confusion was motivated by politics. Of course, we had a certain church leader, maybe a few more, who were saying, why do you want to be in charge of the 10th memorial of Sata, a man that you had no kind words for? How can such words come from a church leader? Because the church is supposed to be preaching reconciliation. The church is supposed to be preaching forgiveness. Can you imagine? Even over issues of the memorial of Mr. Sata, there were these sentiments. Why is HH, bent on attending this memorial and denying President Sata a Catholic celebration, a man that he had no kind words for? And at that point, they conveniently forget how politics is done. The rules of politics. There was no personal bad blood between HH and President Sata. And people should remember that even when the body of President Sata was being flown into the country, HH was there. I was there, and I personally saw him. I even was there when he was greeting his brother, late President Edgar Lungu. I remember all that. Then, you see, allow me again to talk about this point. We know that losing somebody you love on the part of the widow, the family, and so on is very painful. But even for the wider community, members of the Patriotic Front, to be specific, who loved President Edgar Lungu, it's normal. Let's draw a lesson from one thing that Kaweche said. Of course, he tried by all means to gloss over the issue that he didn't attend the funeral. He was annoyed. He was not happy that the wishes of his father were not honored. The wish not to be buried at Embassy Park, but be buried next to his wife, Mama Betty. And he didn't attend the funeral.
In protest of the fact.
In protest.
Yeah.
He was angry. That is the same man, years down the line, who comes back on the national television to tell the world that the right thing that was done at that time, which at that time he did not see, in my view, as the right thing, is what was done. What is this saying? I need to be very slow, and please give me time on this one, Zaki. What is that saying to all of us, but more especially to those strong PF members who really want President Lungu to be buried in South Africa? Those who are annoyed, those who feel more touched by this death, members, that's the wider membership of the PF, including the top leadership. What is this saying? The issue of Kaweche, who refused to attend the funeral, the official funeral of his father, coming now to say those things. What is that saying to our conscience as Zambians? A simple lesson that when you are angry, when you are aggrieved, when you are annoyed about something, you may do things that later on you realize was the wrong way or was the wrong thing to do. Essentially, what Kaweche was saying, what he did at that time by staying away from the father's funeral was wrong. He didn't see the bigger picture, and he emphasized the issue of the bigger picture. He also said something that when some people wanted to erect a statue of his father, Dr. Kaunda initially refused, and he was one of those people who tried to convince him, and a few other people talked to Dr. Kaunda, and eventually he agreed. And we believe, many of us believe, that even if President Edgar Lungu had said he didn't want President HH to attend his funeral, if he were alive and he was engaged on the same matter before death, he would have changed his mind. Now, please remember, I said, if it is true that President Lungu had said or made such a wish, and if such a wish was made public, and a few people started to engage President Lungu before he died, he will have changed that position, because that's how we know him. That's how our brother Winter Kabimba knows him. That's how some of the family members have said to us, those who interacted with President Lungu closely, that he would have changed that position. We also know that President Lungu interacted with a lot of church leaders who would have made him to see the bigger picture and change his position. So it's very, very sad. And now that the matter is in court, maybe we shouldn't even say too much, not because we can be silent,
but what makes you
simply because we want to pray more this time for an amicable solution.
But what makes you really think that this is the decision of the PF when it has been categorically said that it is the decision of the family?
No, it is the decision of the PF top brass, who are exploiting this funeral, who are exploiting this funeral for political reasons. We think that the family would not have continued to insist on the decision that was made to bury President Edgar Lungu in South Africa. They would have thought otherwise and do the right thing, so that we don't hold on to the body of this a man who saved this country, and even as a human being deserves to be given a befitting, a dignified send-off in his own country, so that his legacy does not become that one of having betrayed the Zambian people who gave him the vote twice to govern this country, so that we don't betray his legacy as a God-fearing a man, a Christian who believed in forgiveness, who believed in reconciliation, who went even further to do something that generations to come will ascribe or give credit to him. That is the proclamation of 18th October as a national day of prayer.
Let's leave it at that. Well, considering the fact that you also mentioned that the matter is in court, we can only go as far as that. But
Yes, but
yeah,
my saying that is actually simply to underscore the point that this time around, what we need to do more is to pray that this window that has been provided will be utilized by the family and the government, including various stakeholders, people who can come in to influence the situation so that an amicable solution can be found. I'm not worried about being cited for contempt. I know the jurisdiction within which
that's right.
that matter is happening.
That's right.
And not only that, as long as you comment within the parameters provided by the law itself, you are safe to comment even on a matter that is before the courts of law.
Absolutely. Let's get down to the Constitution, Bill 7 to be precise, amendment of the Constitution, which obviously became Bill 7. First of all, the president decided to defer it, right, or asked the Justice Minister to defer the bill on Thursday. And Friday, the Constitutional Court judges against the judgment is against going ahead with the Bill 7. Now, there is talk here that the deferment that the president made, he could have had some hindsight of what the judgment was, and so decides to go before the judgment. Would you say that that could have been a possibility?
As presidential support systems, we are not privy to the considerations before the president for the decisions that he makes, or the decisions. We are able to discern certain considerations, and sometimes we are right, sometimes we are wrong. So we don't know what could have, the considerations that could have motivated that particular decision in light. I need to understand.
But also he stated in
just a minute.
He stated it that this was following the meetings he had with the church leadership, as well as CSO.
I'm just trying to. I'm saying we are not privy to the considerations that made the president make that decision in light of what you just said.
Right.
Whether he knew what would be the outcome from the courts or not. That's what I was trying to underscore. In terms of the way we have read the situation, that is in the other light now, the light you are coming to. In the sense of the way we have read the situation, the way we have been reading President HH, we are confident that that decision was a result of the consultations, the dialogue that he has already initiated. The dialogue after the bill. There was dialogue before that, but the dialogue after the bill was produced and was going to be presented in Parliament. Zambians are aware that there was an announcement, I think a day or so before the civil society and the church mother bodies went to
meet the president.
To meet the president. Are aware about the announcement by the WASIS Forum to start a nationwide campaign to campaign
the bill.
And then the president quickly had offered them the opportunity, whether they had actually asked or the president invited them. We are not privy to that, but what we are privy to is the positive development that we saw them going to State House to have a chat with the president. And the president was very categorical about the need to listen. That is on the part of government, on the part of the president. And thereafter, there was that announcement to defer the bill. We are consoled. We are happy. We are satisfied as UPND members, along millions of Zambians, that what has transpired is not saying, that is the court judgment, the Constitutional Court, is not saying proposal number 1 is unconstitutional. Proposal number 2 is unconstitutional. The proposed amendments are bad. That's not what has come out. It's about the procedure. It's about the procedure. Meaning the end is clearly uploaded, is clearly acknowledged as something that would be good. It's the means on which the court pronounced itself. And we are confident that the government has listened, especially that there was already an indication even before the courts delivered the judgment to listen. At the end of the day, stopping by-elections is not something that would benefit HH as an individual. It is not something that would benefit UPND as a political party. It is something that will benefit the Zambian people, because much needed resources will be saved by not having by-elections. The court has not said we should continue with the by-elections. The courts have not said, the Constitutional Court has not said it is okay to continue having by-elections. They pronounce themselves on the procedure, the process. And therefore, we are hopeful that government will, in fact, has already heeded that guidance by the Constitutional Court, and that government, through Ministry of Justice and other stakeholders, will continue to discuss, to dialogue, so that at the end of the day, that can be taken care of, so that as soon as possible, this country should stop this practice of having to call for fresh nominations when a candidate sponsored by a political party withdraws from an election, which is also costly, which is a disruption, and so on. And I must say that as I was coming to this program, I was listening to Chapter 1 Foundation Executive Director on one of the radio stations commenting on this matter. And I must say that I was impressed. I was impressed with a lot of things that he said about the current constitution making process. And I said to myself, because of course, Chapter 1 Foundation is we know clearly where they stand on these matters. But I was saying to myself, this is really giving us the hope that there is already that goodwill, the spirit to dialogue, to ensure that we move together, government, important stakeholders, the general citizenry, on this matter, so that at the end of the day, we can have more women representation, we can have more youth representation, we can have more representation of our brothers and sisters who live with disabilities. We can stop by-elections and all these good things that are in Bill 7. And by the way, there is not even a single bad thing in Bill 7. There may be certain issues where we can agree that we need more consultation on them, but majority of, in fact, all those issues are non-contentious. And in my view, I pray that a situation would arise where, for instance, all these stakeholders can convene with government and say, well, let us quickly identify the proposed amendments where indeed Zambians have pronounced themselves over time and again through the commissions. And those provisions would have something to do with the elections, so that after the elections next year, after the elections next year, we don't need to be having this challenge again. Then the other things, of course, we can look at them later on. What are these things I'm talking about? We can agree that we should stop by-elections, but so that after 2026 general elections, we don't have a by-election 3 months down the line or 6 months down the line, because the constitution may not be amended immediately after 2026. And it is possible to have by-elections even before the constitution is amended. Not only that, even as we go ahead towards 2026, it is possible that the 2026 election itself may be marred by this challenge. Some of us call it the lacuna in the constitution, where if somebody who is sponsored by a political party withdraws from an election before the election, of course, you call for fresh, the ECZ calls for fresh nominations. This is one of those things where we can agree that this is a bad thing, it's not good. Let us cure that problem. Whether members of parliament should go back to the councils and so on, we can agree that this one can wait. That is if we mean well. That is if the political parties in the opposition who have opposed this process, including civil society organizations, can have that goodwill. Because these clauses, the ones that I've touched on, for instance, have an impact on even the election that we are going to have in 2026, and it is important to deal with them.
Now, the bigger question is, and I know that government from the onset, government was told from the onset that there needed to be consensus in both process and content, right? It was clear, and a lot of stakeholders, the opposition spoke about this. Why should it take government this long to accept that the process must be okay?
For us, this is water under the bridge. As UPND, it's water under the bridge. We are not going to leave.
Was UPND playing stubborn?
We are not going to. If UPND meant to play stubborn, they would have continued to play stubborn. We need to live in the present and look to the future. This government means well. There is not even a single, as some people claimed, there's not even a single proposal in that bill that people can genuinely claim would advantage the UPND. If indeed such a clause would advantage the UPND, it would be coincidental by the mere fact that it is UPND in power this time around. And if UPND were not in power, the political party who would have been in power would have benefited from such a clause. But I can't think of any clause, even in delimitation. There are some people who are claiming that UPND would have secretly decided to put more constituencies in their strongholds. And then the logic, the question that begs an answer is, how do you increase your support? How do you increase the amount of Coca-Cola that you have, the amount of Fruticana that you have, by pouring some of it in another cup? You don't get more. You only get 2 portions of the same drink that you had. What am I trying to say? If you cut, let's say Kanyama was a stronghold of UPND,
right,
hypothetically, and you cut Kanyama into 2 constituencies, you are not adding more voters. You are just dividing the same voters who were there. If there were 10,000, you'll have 3,000 on this side, you have 7,000 on the other side. And not all those 3,000 on this side and 7,000 on the other side would be UPND supporters, people who would vote for the UPND. So this issue of saying delimitation will advantage the UPND is neither here nor there.
But I think the bigger debate was on why are we increasing expenditure on this?
That's why
especially on MPs.
That's why I said.
Right.
That may be one of those proposals we may agree to put off.
Okay.
Build more consensus. More. That's the word we are using. We have to underscore more. That consensus has been there. The consensus was there in the sense that the constitution itself mandates the Electoral Commission of Zambia, after every 10 years, to review the constituencies, undertake delimitation so that there is equitable, fair representation of all Zambians in this country. Now, some people are saying there's no agreement. Anything that is in the constitution, and the constitution starts with we the people give to ourselves this law, it means that it was agreed upon. Well, people may say it's controversial, fine, but it's in the constitution. So there's already an agreement. That's why it is in the constitution. Until the constitution is amended to remove that provision, we take it that there's consensus on the issue of delimitation. As I was coming here, of course, I made a reference to this.
Yeah.
My brother, the executive director from Chapter 1 Foundation, said that ECZ recommended 90, increasing the number of seats by 90, but the number that has been proposed to increase is lower than that. Now I may misquote him on this one, and I beg to be corrected, but you should get the point I'm trying to say.
Right.
And in that scenario, we need to understand, how was it agreed? How was it agreed that instead of the 90 that was proposed by ECZ, we are going to increase, or the proposal is 50 seats? How? There's need to transparency and so on. And we agree fully. But I was just about to say, this may be one of those points, one of those proposals that can be put aside for more consultation, more dialogue, and we can afford to do that. But we can't afford to go into 2026 with a constitution that says that when a candidate sponsored by a political party withdraws, ECZ is by law mandated to call for fresh nominations. We may have a lot of such situations going into 2026. We need as Zambians to put aside our partisan considerations, narrow partisan considerations, and work on some of these things. And there is consensus on them, including stopping by-elections. There is consensus. There has been consensus. The other points, of course, some of them purely administrative. Maybe there's need for more consensus, but nature of those, some of those, like for instance, to reduce the years of experience for somebody to qualify as secretary to the cabinet from 10 to 5, they are more administrative. And when a government champions such a cause, it's because of challenges that have been met. Yes, if some stakeholders feel that there's need to discuss this more, why 5? Why not 6? Why not 3? Because even as we discuss these matters, we shouldn't forget that when we go to the people, that some of the people may even be saying, us as young people who have just graduated, and you are talking about 5 years experience, it means that we'll never, or it may take too long for us to qualify to occupy some of these positions. And that's how, as young people, you are excluding us. Why don't you just put it at 1 year?
Yeah.
These things can happen.
I hear you, but I think that well, it's good that we are where we are, and I'm sure that most Zambians are happy, because I think there was a bigger voice that was against Bill 7, especially not necessarily the content, yes, but the process. So now let's move to
now maybe a small point. Another point: the courts are not. They don't leave the judges, that is. The judges don't live on the moon. They are not astronauts who are out there and they don't understand what is happening here. There are only code or emails are sent to them to adjudicate on a specific matter and so on. They are part of our community. They know what goes on, but they follow the law, of course, when determining a case. This country has seen one of the most acrimonious constitutional review process for political reasons. I've qualified for political reasons. When President HH mentioned 2 years ago in one of his addresses to Parliament, giving a report on the progress made in implementing national values and so on, about the lacunas that we have in the Constitution and that we need to clean up these things. And he gave the example where even those standing as Republican president, if one of them withdrew, it means that you have to go for fresh nominations. And of course, used an example like Jesus would, couch his examples. In terms of choice, you have to hate your mother, you have to hate your brother, and then you come and follow me. Not necessarily in that technical context. So the president used a similar approach to explain that you can have a situation where you may not have elections. He didn't use 20 years, but for a long time. as a possibility, just trying to underscore the importance to clean up the constitution on that specific element. And the president was 100% right. But look at some of the people we should be respecting as constitutional lawyers. Look at some of the people we should be respecting as politicians. The way they came out on that particular issue. Even a grade 3 child should know that the president was on firm ground in making that point. Because it is true. It is true. The electoral system, in terms of this particular provision, clearly says that when a candidate sponsored by a political party withdraws, the Electoral Commission of Zambia is supposed to call for fresh elections. And the president was alerting us to say we can have a situation where you can have, it may not be perpetually, but you can have this issue of not having the presidential election on the date prescribed in the constitution because of this problem. Such problems need to be cured. Why is it that people, some people, not everyone, some people even wanted to call the president names, and some of them disrespecting him, saying that the lacuna is in his head and so on? Was that necessary, really? What was the other things that were said? That you wanted to get rid of 50% plus one, that you wanted to be appointing the vice president and therefore get rid of the running mate and so on. And there was a lot of campaign that happened. And some of that could have swayed the minds of some people in this country. And therefore, people repeating the same things on radio stations, on social media, and so on. So the judges probably are aware about these things. So it's a blessing. It's a blessing that the Concord ruled as it did. It's a blessing that we have a listening government, a president that respects the courts. And I'm very sure behind the scenes, things are being done to quickly see how to realign in line with the guidance by the courts, because these are the same courts.
There's a call. We should just drop this whole thing of constitution amendment.
Government will have to consider that proposal, but that is not for us at this stage to say government should do that or not, because there are technical issues also at play. When you withdraw a bill, what are the implications? When can you bring it back? Is it possible to bring it back in that same sitting of parliament? And if the bill is withdrawn, not amended, but withdrawn, and in the event that you can't bring it back, so it means that we'll go into 2026 general elections with the same provisions in our Constitution and Electoral Act, where if somebody withdraws from the election before voting day and they're sponsored by a political party, you have fresh nominations. There are all these technicalities, which a person like me cannot come here and simply say, yes, they should withdraw the entire bill. And you know, this sometimes thinking that government, and you see it doesn't matter even before UPND. You see it where people speak as if those in government are dunderheads. Those in government, and I mean Ministry of Justice and other institutions, including Parliament, they don't know what they are doing. That is not true. These are very, very learned people. Can they make mistakes? Yes, they can make mistakes. But remember the point I'm trying to make, that it may not be for me to say the bill should just be deferred as it has been deferred, it should not be withdrawn, and so on. At this point, I'm not able to argue as such, because I'm not sure about the considerations that need to be looked at before a decision is made in terms of what to do finally. And we do know that government, of course, with the technocrats within government, stakeholders, including some of those who may be calling for the total withdrawal of the bill, will discuss, dialogue, and the right thing at the end of the day would be done. Now, allow me, it's a bad example, a very, very bad example, but please allow me. We have an impasse concerning the burial of our 60th Republican president. And the government went to court, and there is no solution. And people have been laughing at us, the international community, and so on. An opportunity over the constitution making process to show that as Zambians, we can get together. When the court has spoken, we can get together, even before the court has spoken, and agree on a common thing, agree on something that benefits all of us. We have another opportunity to rewrite history from that shame.
This is the Tuesday edition of The Burning Issue, and our guest is Mr. Frank Bwalya. He is the UPND Director General for Media in the Presidential Support System. I will be taking your phone calls pretty soon on 0955 221515, and I'll be looking at the comments on Facebook. We have a couple of them. But before we get there, quickly let's touch on the energy. All right, we'll touch on two subsectors. Of course, the fuel subsector will also touch on the electricity subsector. But let's start with the electricity subsector. I mean, this seemed to be proving a problem for this government, the UPND government, to really resolve this load shedding issue. What is really the problem?
One thing should be understood, and there should be no debate about it, that to solve the problem that we have, energy deficit, given the dynamics, the factors that have brought us where we are, would not, to solve the problem, would not take one signature. It would not take one meeting. It would not take one big investment and boom, there you are, the problem is resolved. I listened to somebody, now I can't remember whether that was a church leader or a politician, complaining about load shedding. And this politician, I can't remember if it was a politician, it was on social media, but somebody respected, was saying, we still have load shedding. They told us that the problem was with drought. We had low water levels in the Kariba Dam, but we had a good rainy season and we still have load shedding. These people are liars. And I said to myself, you are the biggest liar and manipulator, and maybe the biggest ignorant person around, who doesn't know that you may have a very good rainy season after a year of drought and you still not have enough water in the Kariba Dam for you to generate power at maximum capacity according to installed capacity. Now, why are people putting things in this manner? Again, they want to take advantage of simple minds. They want to take advantage of some of our brothers and sisters who may not be privy to these things, but they are very, very interested about what happens in this country. They are affected by load shedding. They don't like it. I don't like it. And they are listening to various stakeholders, various commentators, some of them going by flamboyant terms such as governance expert, economist, and so on, but deliberately trying to mislead people. Of course, if my grandmother in the village, if my brother who doesn't understand these things listened to such a man, and with the titles that the man or woman carries, and is saying, they said it's because of drought. Now we had a good rainy season, but we still have power shortage. They are selling power. My brother, my old mother, my grandmother may believe what this person is saying. But we have been told by experts, and this is the truth, that it would take 3 consecutive good rainy seasons to bring the water levels in the Kariba to those desirable levels where you may be boasting about the high installed capacity at Kariba, at Big One last year. And then you have a good rainy season, a different space. The question, therefore, which every Zambian should be asking is, what is Bali? What is HH? What is government? What is Zesco? And one answer, because there are many answers in the terms of what government is doing. The president says, I can say something on that. Yesterday, we launched 100 megawatts of solar power from Chisamba, 100 megawatts in terms of what our national consumption is as a country. 100 megawatts is a lot. Is a lot. And this is why we do believe that the game changer is the initiative, the presidential initiative to have 1,000 megawatts of solar power. And what was launched yesterday, megawatts, is part of that program, that intervention. This would work. And Zambians have been talking about the need. And so when you listened to the speech by the president yesterday, his engagement with the Zambian public through that occasion, it's very, very clear that we have a government in place that understands the problem, that knows the solution, not only one solution, but various interventions, but talking about diversifying our energy sources. This government knows what needs to be done, and they are doing it. 100 megawatts yesterday. We just hope that the next 100, or maybe it will be 200, will come as soon as possible, and it will make a huge difference. Now, I'm avoiding to say it will totally end load shedding. I'm saying it will make a huge difference. The reason is simple. I have a small place somewhere where I need to apply for power. I know that there has been a historical backlog. I have another place somewhere where we don't have power. It's in a rural setting. We don't have power. And whenever I'm going to that place, I see where, I don't know if those power lines were done by RIA or Zesco, I'm not too sure, where the power ends. And it's about 8 kilometers coming to where we are. And in that place, you even have schools. There are 2 schools there. You have people who are, into farming and so on. The people who want to do more in terms of, irrigation as part of responding to the president's call to increase productivity and so on. But without power, it becomes a problem. Solar is relatively still expensive, but when government does it and feeds into the grid, this is something that is very, very encouraged. But the bottom line, the point I'm trying to make, is that the population has been increasing at a faster rate than the capacity to generate power. And there are things working against us. Climate change. This is where we are. When you talk about Mamba, for instance, it's very difficult for Mamba in this era and age to get substantial investment in terms of getting loans to expand their capacity, because the international lending institutions are refusing to give money to an energy company that is going to be burning coal. Again, because of the considerations of climate change, greenhouse gases, and these things. And that's why it was very difficult. It was very difficult for Mamba Coraries to get the money that they needed to expand until UPND formed the government. They got that money. They are giving us power. But sometimes they're doing maintenance. Sometimes there are breakdowns, because these are things, as they say, made by human hands. Sometimes there are breakdowns. The 150 megawatts of power they are giving us is withheld, and there's a disruption in the Zesco system. So as former Zesco board chairperson, I understand some of these things and appreciate even the challenges that Zesco is going through. But I will still complain that in our place, of late, we have more power. But why should that be a complaint? Of late, where we live, we have more power. But our complaint is that we're having intermittent supply. Somebody would say, UPND. He's a member of the UPND, and he has gone to a radio station to criticize Zesco, to criticize the president, because at the end of the day, the buck ends at the president's desk. This is a technical issue. We have reported to Zesco. We do believe Zesco is working on it. And it's important for members of the party, the so-called praise singers, to talk about what we also go through, because people think that when we support the president, when we support the good policies of the New Dawn government, we do that blindly. No, it's because those are good policies. And where things are failing, we are also affected. And we do speak. We may not come to a radio station like this one to abuse that institution and that institution. No, but we do speak. And therefore, we can be seen in our proper context as people who also speak for the people. That press conference we had the other time, addressed by myself, talking about making a clarion call on the Consumer Protection Commission to do more to ensure that there is an immediate trickle-down effect. The appreciation of the kwacha, the reduction in fuel prices, in terms of now the prices of goods and services. We feared that some unscrupulous producers of these goods and services may not pass on this benefit to us, the consumers. They may see an opportunity to exploit us to make more money. Now, this is a language some people may think should come from the opposition, because the government or somebody aligned to the ruling party should not be saying that. But we do say these things. We call press conferences to say these things. We call upon government to do certain things. We alert government about what people are going through. We are part of the people. The president is part of the people. And the way he spoke yesterday, you can see a president who is speaking for the people. A president who is carrying the burden, what the people of this country go through, on his shoulders, and is in a hurry to make a difference in their lives. But a president who understands fully well that he can't make a difference in the lives of the people if he doesn't make a difference in the economy. It's the economy that should deliver the good things that we need as Zambians.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for speaking to that. Grateful, and we'll take some more calls now. We'll take some calls, and we'll take more messages as well on our Facebook page and our text line. Let me start with a message that has come through on our text line. This one says, "Good morning, Zach and Mr. Bwalya. Concord and the president's decision was a coincidence. He knew the outcome of the court. All you people surrounding the president misleading him and all you guys need to be fired, especially the justice minister. How does she go round to the chiefs, okay, enticing them over 7, wasting taxpayers' money? It's a shame. Let that bill be withdrawn completely. Thank you." He didn't give us the name though, but we appreciate the message.
Yeah, it's very decent and a very fair comment. We'll respond.
And I think let's focus more on there was taxpayers' money involved in this, Bill 7 issue. But let's take a call now on 0955-221515. Good morning. You can have your headsets on. Then, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
How are you today?
Fine. I don't know how are you doing, Zach.
Very well.
Good morning, your father there.
Good
Thank you. Your name and where are you calling us from?
This is the concerned citizen, Mr. Lupindola, calling within Lusaka.
Mr. Lupindola.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
But Father, first of all, Bakalamba, Nevo Commissioner recommend for the wonderful job we are doing. Me, my concern mainly is I want you to comment, even especially coming from the human priesthood background. I want you to lecture. Is what Father Aliki Banda is doing, is it right for the nation? Father, I just want you to comment on this one. Thank you very much.
What exactly is the bishop doing that you would like him to comment about? You are too general. Can you be specific?
Yes. I think I want him to comment concerning the funeral for our former president, Edgar Lungu, and the maneuvers that he's doing around concerning the memorial for Basata. You know, it's like this Father Aliki is working against the government. And as a clergy, I think as a Zambian citizen and coming from a Catholic background, I feel my father, I want him just to lecture Aliki Banda what he's doing. I think as a nation, we feel, I think this can cause this country to go into genocide or something else. You remember in Rwanda, it is the same Catholic that started the genocide in Rwanda through the decisive decision that he's making. I think I wanted Bwalya just to comment on what Aliki Banda is doing. Is he speaking the mind of Catholics or is he on his own? If Father Aliki Banda is is a politician. Let him take off the robe and face the Zambians. I
Thank
think
you.
as a concerned citizen, I feel the route that Banda is taking is not right.
Thank
I
you.
think I seek Bwalya just to
Thank you.
speak his mind
Thank-
also on this one.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll take another call on 0955221515. That's the number you're calling us on. Good morning.
Good morning, Zach. How are you, my brother?
Not too bad. Thank you. Is this Brother Chisha?
Exactly. You're speaking to Brother Chisha in Lusaka.
Yeah, welcome. We haven't spoken in a long time.
Yeah, this period we are in, it's difficult for us to participate in national programs because of the funeral.
Indeed.
But today we have just decided to come.
To call. We are grateful that you've called. Please go ahead.
Mwapuleni
so much.
bachisha.
Mwapuleni ba Father Bwalya.
Yeah, I'm quiet.
I'm crying. Personally, I have two questions for you, Frank Bwalya. The first one is, whom are we supposed to commend for the issue of constitution making? You are calling it to be a coincidence. The president made a statement today. The following day, the Concord said this process is not supposed to continue. Are you still insisting that it was just a coincidence, Father? Second question is that you are accusing PF to say they are the one who are putting spanners for the funeral of our former president. Are you not aware of the stance of the family who are insisting to say they don't want the body of the former president to come into this country? Like you said, this case is still in court, and we don't want to talk much about it.
Is that all? Okay.
Let me go quickly to the issue as I conclude, Zach.
Right.
I want to talk about the issue of Zesco. But Father Bwalya, I think you are very much aware that Zambian, we have suffered a lot with this issue of load shedding. When the president was in opposition, by that time, Father Bwalya, you were in PF. You were also condemning HH, telling him to say you can't save your neighbor's children when your children are sleeping with empty stomach. How come today you are saying no? The policy of UPND, where this is concerned, is very clear. How sure are we that even these very things you are commissioning, they are not going to be exported whereby Zambians are not going to benefit in anything? Because for me, I can foresee the situation like it has happened in the past. Zambians are suffering. You are busy selling pot outside the country. How sure are you that this time around Zambians are going to benefit? Because as we are speaking, some of us, we are still in darkness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, brother Chisha. Let me give you a comment from our Facebook page. It's from Collins Mulomba. Collins Mulomba says, Mr. Frank Bwalya, you should be sincere with yourself and the people of Zambia. When speaking on matters of national importance, you need to be careful. Speak the truth. And remember, you are a former father by religion. Zambian people are going through a lot of things, a lot of hardships, a lot of things, and hardships are the order of the days. And yet you are praising your people. Don't speak from the stomach. We need solutions to the problems. You have failed to advise our president to shift to State House from his community house for the national interest. But you have interest to bury the former president, Edgar Lungu. The government and the family, the government and the family made an agreement, and in the end, the government changed and went astray with the agreement. Okay. The second one, and then you respond, is from Brighton Shatowa. Now, Brighton Shatowa says, let Mr. Frank Bwalya be an ambassador of peace. Bring UPND and PF together. He loved the pro-poor program of the PF, and now he is in the UPND government. He can't be the one throwing stones on his friends in the PF. He worked with them, and and what has gone wrong now that they are out of power. What if they bounce back again? Is he going to be up? Is he going to, I think, give up the UPND after the party loses power next year? Mr. Frank Bwalya, do this. Tell HH and his legal team to drop the cases against former government officials and free those serving prison sentences. Call back people in exile from there, talk and bring home the remains of Edgar Lungu from South Africa. Let the opposition organize itself peacefully, and for next year's general elections, make sure no UPND and PF are fighting. Let's heal this country, and he feels you can do better if you play the role in healing this country. Let's hear you react.
Let me start with the last one.
Right.
When you are asking somebody to play the role of healing the country, you should show that you come with clean hands by not accusing that person at the same time. How can you say, I'm going to use this instrument to solve the problem, but this is a very bad instrument? This instrument doesn't cut well. This instrument sometimes, fails you. That's what this man has essentially done. He's saying, I can play that role, but at the same time, he is piling accusations of me, accusing me, throwing stones at PF.
And
Therefore,
speaking from the stomach.
So I'm not a good instrument for him. And I may not waste time responding to a person such as that one. I waste time. I spend time responding to people I know they mean well. I agree with him that the remains of President Lungu should be brought back. On this program, I have not thrown stones at anyone. I have made what I believe is a fair criticism, a fair comment on how many Zambians read what has happened in terms of the impasse to bury President Edgar Lungu. Look, we have a funeral as a country, but it doesn't look like we even have a funeral because people have moved on. That is shameful for a country. That is shameful for the country. If this whole thing was very clear, the president's body will come on Wednesday. On Sunday, we have this service. On Monday, we have another service, and bury him. That mood would have continued. And therefore, it is totally unacceptable to blame President HH. In fact, people should commend him that that decision was made to end national mourning, which is the collective official mourning of the country. When this matter is resolved, Cabinet and the family will get together in the event that the remains of President Lungu have to come back to South Africa and decide how best to honor him during that time. And even if the decision is made that he should be buried in South Africa, government will still have to be involved. We still have to be involved because the government will be representing the people of Zambia. And I don't think the court in South Africa will rule that no Zambian should attend that funeral representing the government. I don't think such a thing would happen. But nevertheless, we are praying. That is the issue this time around. We are praying that a window, an opportunity has presented itself, the government and the family, we underscore the family, and people representing the family, not those politicians who have been representing the family, can sit down together and agree on a negotiated settlement. Trusting the court is a good thing where you have no solution. But every time you have a decision coming out of the court, it's either one has lost and the other one has won. So whatever will come out of the court, the courts may try to balance as much as possible, but somebody will come out thinking that they have lost, another one will come out thinking that they have won. And that may continue to divide us. Am I therefore saying that government shouldn't have gone to court? No, government did well to go to court on behalf of me, on behalf of all the millions of Zambians who believe that President Lungu should be brought back to us and be buried here. Were there some mistakes that were made in this process? Yes, on both sides. But some of the mistakes that are being heaped on President HH and the government are not justifiable. For instance, if indeed somebody can claim that the only reason the body didn't come on Wednesday that day and everything was ready was because there was this so-called church service at the at the airport, and that President HH would be there. I don't think that was the real reason. If that were the real reasons, the family would have said, "We are Christians. We pray. Let's go."
But it wasn't in
just a minute.
It wasn't in consultation with the family, and I think that is where the issue was.
Why should people who claim to be Christians, be so uptight, so upset by the presence of prayers on a program? Sometimes you go to a meeting in this country, it could be an official meeting, and on the program there's nothing saying you have to pray. But the chairperson or somebody in the audience says, "We are a Christian nation, are we not praying?" Even in parliament, they will pray when starting. And then the chairperson would honor that request. "Okay, please, can somebody pray?" Oh, we have a leader there. Sometimes when I'm in such an audience, people say, "Oh, Father, whatever, Pepe," and then you offer a prayer. If there was goodwill, that shouldn't have been a big issue. That shouldn't have been a big issue.
But if the government had goodwill, they should have communicated that there are additions to the program away from what they agreed.
If the government didn't communicate and the government, the family had an issue with that, what could have happened was the family saying, "Can you please remove that?" But all we heard was the announcement. But now, please allow me, I made a mistake actually to delve into these issues, because these issues are neither here nor there. We are all commenting on them as third parties without really understanding what transpired. And there's a lot of propaganda around these issues. My brother talked about, getting people out of jail and things like that. I'm not too sure about that. I think people should apply for bail. The people should appeal when they are sent to jail. And I cannot comment on individual cases. I'm not competent to do that. But what I believe is that we are a country where the rule of law prevails. And those who think that they have been sent to jail unjustifiably, the avenues are there for them to appeal. When it's not successful, unfortunately, there's nothing that a person like me can do. Bamulomba, it was saying, "No, speak with truth. Zambians are suffering. You are praising the UPND government and so on and so forth." Please, Mwebena Zambia, when you come on a program like this one, reduce this bitterness and judgmental approach. I have talked about how we suffer. Not this time around, we have more power, as I said, but with that technical problem that we have, which Zesco need to work on. I've talked about the president as speaking for the people. I have acknowledged indirectly the reduction of fuel, diesel, and petrol. I didn't come to this program and I haven't done such a thing as to say everything is fine in this country. Everyone is having 3 square meals and some ice cream thereafter. Ice cream is not good for me, but some people like that. So allow me to use just that example. And some ice cream, and everyone is happy in this country. When you go out on the streets, you see people are smiling because no one is hustling. I never said that. No one in the UPND is saying that. The president is not saying that. Why is the president saying, and he repeated it yesterday, that he is in State House to work and work? And it's not something that people should even envy, because there's work there. He didn't put it in that way. These are my words. It's because he's working around the clock to improve the lives of the people. How would you be telling the Zambians that you are working around the clock to improve their livelihood if everything is okay? So this cheap propaganda where you start by accusing this one of saying everything is okay, it doesn't work. It doesn't work, please.
And I think he added to that of asking you to advise the president. Why hasn't the president taken the national interest by moving into State House, the government people? And I think he made that in comparison to the remains of the former president.
It's a very wrong comparison and quite cheap. Wrong and quite cheap. You cannot say because HH has not moved to State House in terms of residence, therefore it is justifiable for President Lungu to be buried in a foreign country. In the first place, is that the reason the family has given? It is not. So let's not focus on whether HH should move to State House or not regarding this impasse. Are these people telling us that if HH says I'm packing to go to Mkwazi, then the body would be on the next plane? Is that the issue? Let's not look at the things in such a simple way, because things may not be that simple. This matter is not simple. We are continuing to ask the family to listen to the wisdom of Ambassador George Zulu, our brother Kaweche Kaunda, and he says he has gone through this, as we all know, how they went to court to try to honor the wishes of their father, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, who was also our father. And how today, after a number of years, he has that courage, that wisdom to guide the nation, to guide the family of the 60th Republican president, late President Edgar Lungu, and may his soul rest in eternal peace. And we pray that an amicable solution would be found as quickly as possible, so that President Edgar Lungu can be allowed to leave that cold place, that mortuary, and be buried in a dignified manner, and that our ancestors and everyone in Zambia can have their hearts at rest, that they have done what you need to do to a leader such as a former Republican president in terms of giving them a befitting send-off. Brother Chisha, who should we commend over the Constitution? In the interest of progress, why don't we focus on what should be the next step? Commend who you think should be commended, and allow me to commend who I think should be commended. Who am I commending? I'm commending the courts. I'm commending the courts for being bold, for upholding the law, for making the judgment that they did. And I did even put it on my Facebook page that we should not only respect what comes out of the courts when it aligns with our interests. We should respect the courts because they play a very, very important role in terms of resolving the differences that we may have as a country, even as individuals. The courts have spoken. The president spoke. But now we are talking about after the courts have spoken. We have commended the courts. When the president spoke, we also commended him, because that bold step he took was worth commending. And we did that. That portion goes to him. The portion that goes to the courts goes to the courts, the civil society organizations, the church. You and me and government are yet to be commended by coming together to ensure that we do this thing together. Where there could have been mistakes, we work on those mistakes and ensure that there's consensus. And that those of our brothers and sisters who are in the habit of misleading people, who actually created more or less the platform that has seen this situation of the current constitution making process being viewed as highly acrimonious, by misleading people, accusing HH of all kinds of things, that he wants to remove 50% plus one and so on, I think they should desist. Because those people, in fact, opposed this process even before the roadmap was released, even before the bill was prepared, that is Bill 7. So let's work together. And I think the president has made it very clear in terms of working together. And the members say, the president has an open door policy, and we highly commend civil society organizations. We highly commend the church that honored the invitation to go and sit with the president and chat with him. You know, it makes a very huge difference when you are not talking to each other in the media and through letters, but when we meet as brothers and sisters with the common goal of advancing the common good of this country. It makes a huge difference. And we saw that difference going forward. Let's see Zambia moving together and demonstrating that we are able to work together, unlike the kind of picture we've been sending over the impasse of the burial of President Lungu. The other question Machisha asked was, it's the family that is insisting. I don't believe it's the family that is insisting, because what would be in the best interest of the family is to bring President Lungu back to Zambia, be given full military honors, a befitting burial, and his legacy left intact as a Christian, the same Christian who even proclaimed 18th October as a day of prayer, fasting, forgiveness, reconciliation. That would be the interest of the family. If the family still remains aggrieved, they are hating, like the Kaweches, the Kaunda family, who didn't even attend the funeral at that time, we want to believe that, using the example of Kaunda, for them, they would see this quicker, because there's an example to refer to, the Kaunda example, and do the needful for the country. Not for PF, not for UPND, but for the country. Then how sure are you that the power that has been, the power plant that has, the solar 100 megawatts power that was launched yesterday will instead be exported? Bachisha, this notion of propaganda that we have power deficit because power is being exported should be stopped. Should be stopped. If the problem we're having power deficit is because power is being exported, why are the same people advancing such a narrative, the same people also sometimes talking about the low water levels in the Kariba, talking about Zambia not generating power through hydro according to the installed capacity at Kariba and so on? Why? We know that the reason why we have a deficit is not because all the electricity is being mopped up by this government and sold. No.
But is there some that is being exported?
There is always power exported. Even under PF, when we had load shedding, power was being exported. And we need Zesco to do more, to come to radio stations such as this one, to have public fora, to explain this concept, how the Southern African power pool works.
Well,
and
you were board chair. You are competent
when
enough.
I explain, many people will not understand.
Well, those who may not know that you have been at the helm of Zesco, in as far as board chair is concerned, may not understand. But now that they know that you could also wear that jacket and share your experience.
No, we have become so polarized that by simply reminding themselves that I'm UPND, they think that I'm a praise singer and I'm supporting what I don't know, or I am lying. There are some people like
but
that.
Explain the
But
export.
there are also a lot of people,
the export part
yes,
of,
just
of
a minute.
electricity.
There are also a lot of people, in fact, they are the majority, who would understand what I would say. But the rightful people would be for Zesco to do more, to send even engineers to explain how these things work. For instance, power itself, electricity. People may think that electricity, this science, this technology, is something that is simple. It is very, very complicated. Very, very complicated. And that's why our brothers and sisters go to study, to become engineers, electrical engineers, and so on. And every time we are discovering new things, every time. In the same way, we're having problems with network, Airtel, MTN, Cell Z, and so on. The same way we're having problems. It's not because the service provider enjoys inconveniencing Zambians. They want to make money, those service providers. Meaning that if there is anyone who will do everything possible to ensure that we don't have those challenges, it's the companies themselves. Sometimes these things, regardless of what measures you put in place, interventions, they just happen. They are sometimes beyond the control of us as human beings. The same applies to electricity. Namibia, for instance, or indeed Zimbabwe, there's an agreement between all these countries that belong to the Southern African power pool. And now that we are, as Zambia, building a line to Tanzania, I want to believe that Tanzania would be part of that. There is an agreement among these countries And the technicians should come, the engineers should come and explain these things. That when you have a problem of low power supply, for instance, in Zimbabwe, and they just don't have enough to power their key installations, hospitals, and so on, and they have an agreement with Zambia, when Zambia has plenty, to supply them power, in order for them to feed those key vital installations so that babies don't die in incubators and so on. When Zambia has a problem, they cannot get power that should be powering incubators at UTH, power that should be, go to the heart hospital and things like that, and give it to the neighbor so that their people would die. They would not do that. But they will still have to part away with some power to help the neighbor. Because when the opposite happens, or should it happen, that neighbor will also be obliged to assist the neighbor. That is part of what is agreed under that. And there are some other now technical things that are done for the purposes of saving the life of the equipment in these countries when there's a problem. For instance, when there is more than enough power to be consumed at a particular hour or time in Zimbabwe in terms of their generation, that power is automatically evacuated or sent to where there is need. Because these countries, the need would vary depending on the hour and so on. And the power may not be stored like in a fridge or in a cupboard to say we are going to use it tomorrow. So when you have excess, the system itself decides where to channel that power. And it records that so much power has gone to that country will pay the other party. There are all these agreements that happen. But the bottom line is that it is not true that the current power deficit is because is because UPND is selling power to Namibia or to wherever. It is not true. And that's why I said Zesco needs to do more. They have been doing it. That's why I'm saying no more, to explain how these things work. And the engineers, of course. But of course, in this country, you find that engineers sometimes even fear to come to programs such as this one. Because when people begin to call, they want to create the impression that everyone working at Zesco is a relative of HH. Everyone working at Zesco is a UPND card and they have no qualifications whatsoever. So maybe we do. I don't know. Maybe we do intimidate these people and they think that they should work quietly behind the scenes and do the right thing. Of course, they have got challenges and so on. But I think more needs to be done to explain in simple terms so that some of our people may not be misled to believe that it's because power is exported. That's why we have this current load shedding. The reason is simple. It's there for everyone to see. Those of you who had your maize that withered last year because of the drought, you should understand that it's the same thing that happened to availability of power. Then I think that was the last question by
That's right.
Chisha. Then the first one was Balupindura, which you read about.
No, he called actually.
Oh,
And
he
was
called,
talking
yes.
about your view on Dr. Alec Banda.
Yes. I must say that the Catholic Church did not cause the genocide in Rwanda. But we as Catholics have admitted the role that we played in terms of failing to stop that genocide and actively participating in the genocide. The cause was not and cannot be squarely ascribed to the Catholic Church. And I think the late Pope pronounced himself on this, and these things are on record about the shame that we should that we should have as Catholics in terms of what happened there. I'm on record myself explaining that some individual priests were actually convicted for participating. Some Catholic nuns were convicted, but it was not policy of the Catholic Church to cause that genocide. Why am I underscoring this point? It is to say that the behavior of one individual in certain situations can make entire institution they belong to be perceived in the wrong light. And therefore, whatever Bishop Dr. Alec Banda does, whatever I do as an individual Catholic as Frank Bwalya, sometimes, as they say in Bemba, Musuku Tukishempanga, people may think this is how Catholics are. If I fail to forgive as a Catholic, some people would say, no man shimbuka torika bwashani. What do they teach them in the church if you can't forgive over a matter like this? So I want now to put it on record, and I've said this before. There are many Catholics who don't like it. There are a few church leaders in the Catholic Church who may not even want to, to be nice to me when they see me at a church because of these things I've been saying, and I want to repeat. Bishop Dr. Alec Banda could have done better and could have done more over the issue of the 10th anniversary of President Sata and the current impasse. The current impasse, I may not say it would have taken only him to resolve this problem because there's something beyond that. But I would say that he could have done more. He could have done more as a church leader, a very senior church leader, who, whether this was said before President Lungu died or it was in some will somewhere that he should be the one to say the mass as a Catholic, and when President Lungu was not a Catholic, behind the scenes, he could have done more to soften the hearts of those who are determined to have President Lungu buried in South Africa, to see the bigger picture, as my brother Kaweche Kaunda was saying, and do the needful in the interest of the country to bring President Lungu to Zambia, be buried here, and then the issues that need to be resolved be done thereafter. By playing that role, the Catholic Church, other churches, because we have to be taken together as the body of Christ, would have taken the credit, not as if to say they do it for the sake of taking the credit, but the country would have recorded that as a church assisting. As it is at the moment, by this impasse, and then he decides to go to South Africa, I don't blame him, but he was invited there. But I think that there's a missed opportunity by him on behalf of all of us to resolve this issue. It's not too late. We want to believe that he can still do more. In terms of whether he has become a politician and so on, I may not want to go into that on this program.
Let me take some more calls then. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Morning to you. Thank you for calling. Your name and where you're calling us from?
This is option Atembo or HH.
Okay.
Bwalya Banda.
Mtaukabwino wa HH Atembo.
Yes. So, good morning, Mr. Zach.
I'm well. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So, I've been following Mr. Frank Bwalya in all the programs that he is featuring on.
Right.
I think he's speaking well. But one thing that I would want to put is that, governing people is something that is difficult, whereby you cannot be appreciated by anyone. This starts from our own homes. No matter how hardworking you can be on earth, you cannot make everyone rich and everyone happy. That people should know in mind. No matter that person who has got bitter about HH, the person who was bitter about Edgar Lungu, who was bitter about Mwanawasa, Chiruba, and now that 6 of them have gone, only one is remaining. Even if you were to be on that position as president, you cannot make everyone happy and everyone rich. There is nothing like such a situation in the whole world of any other country. Poverty will be there. That's the way God made it. And number two, there is this notion of whereby people are busy calling on phone. No, let the government drop cases about these political opponents or opposition. You can't do that. Then we mean we are not fair to each and everyone. Ask the poor people, how many of us are jailed in prisons in jail? Parents have died, both mother and father, but they have not been given an opportunity to go and see, even to mourn. So what's so special with these politicians? Are they not human beings? If someone is killed, he is given those charges to the court. What do? You have got money, go and prove yourself innocent. Even if you don't have money, the issue is prove yourself innocent in the court, then you will be released. Why should someone cry on behalf of the politicians that no, release them? Let them face the law if they did something wrong with the Zambians. They did not do it wrong to you who is pleading for them, no. They did to the entire country. So if they are innocent, let them be released and they prove their innocence in the courts of law. And we should not show bitterness when we are talking on radio. Let's bear in mind that politics In politics, there is only two things: you lose or you win. 2026 is coming. I can't say no, HH is going to win. No, this one is going to win. I can only say I wish all the best to my party. If it wins, then win and good. But it doesn't mean that I should be an enemy to my opponent, who is my friend who is supporting another party. Let's embrace each other.
Thank you.
You read politicians when they are addressing each other, they are calling my good sister, my brother. But you are busy fighting on the ground. Let's stop that.
Thank you, Atem.
Together, and peace should be there in the next.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your contribution. Let me see if I can take some more on 0955 221515. That's the number that you are calling if you would like to come through and make a contribution or indeed ask a question. I still have a couple of questions on our Facebook page as well. Let me see if I can give you some. Good morning, Zach. This one is from William. All right. William says, good morning, Zach and Mr. Bwalya. This is William Ngenda from Choma. Please, Mr. Bwalya, can you advise those people who are busy politicizing the funeral of late Lungu? He goes on to mention people like Nakachinda, Lubinda, Mumbipi, who say if Zambian government wins the case in South Africa, and the South African court, let the family of Lungu not be present or not authorize or sign to authorize for the body to be released. Secondly, to those who are saying we actually don't want this Bill 7, let them tell us clause by clause why they actually don't want it, not just refusing because my party officials are opposing. Then you have to also oppose without even reading it. All right. So let me see if I can give you a call. Good morning. Hello. Good morning. Okay, we can hardly hear you. If we are on speaker, please get us all out of speaker.
Okay. My name is Banda. I'm calling from Ndola Kabushi.
From Ndola Kabushi.
Yeah, my concern is going to Mr. Bwalya and the current president.
Yes.
You know, sir, especially Mr. Bwalya. Before I you know what I'm saying is, I want to go to the Granda, what we took our community party. Number of Granda, when you run and you chalo, because you are actually a good avant content here. That's what I want to. I want to run the white color here. Aside, so that you want to tell one of the Granda. What was I want to want to? I think I'm going to but it's no opposition. And the other issue, I advise you for our UPND. But then, when I go to family, and then, and who my general question, it's the number of questions, but then, Sevania, Chavalanti, Mawena Kuluma, to my general. So, at the moment, I'm going to family, the other grand, the other family, the family state, and we put a mind shiva. Why you would like to Kunama and get a salad and daddy? Take over to back on that here. Please go up with more than 12 papa. You want to go ahead. You might have one sided. Rapani da Baba de Chile, you and Papa Frank Bwalya. The money of Kukurandia is Charles. Let them have Kiroko. My friend that India require when Koran you that I can one sided. Chap over and over another.
Natasha. All right. There you have it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, please, let's do.
Yeah, let's start with HH Atembo.
Yeah.
What has happened is that there's a lot of panic on the part of everyone that doesn't like HH, doesn't like UPND. And they're doing everything possible to decampaign HH. Everything possible, starting from his shoes, his clothing, mishishi, everything, the way he walks, the way he looks, everything. They are looking for something to use against HH. Where is this panic coming from? Some of these people are experienced enough in politics to sense the country turning, to sense the things in the country, the economy and so on, the social situation turning in the country. They know. They celebrated the drought. They celebrated, power deficit. They celebrated the kwacha losing value. They celebrated the prolonged negotiations for debt restructuring and all these things. Now, almost all these things are changing. The price of fuel is going down, and we pray that it will continue. Using the exports tracking framework that the Bank of Zambia, of course, government through Bank of Zambia has put in place, the kwacha is appreciating as one of those factors, which is translating into reduced fuel prices, more money going into constituencies in terms of CDF, having a good rainy season and having the highest maize bumper harvest in recent history, I think like never before. In fact, all these things happening, the mining sector fixed, they have realized that where we are going, things are even going to get better because the economy is responding well. When you search the international community in terms of the financial situation of the Zambian economy, positive information coming up, positive information. Our reserves, for instance, rising to something higher than we have seen in the last 10 years. That is even during the time of PF, meaning that if UPND is breaking even its own record, the Constitutional Court makes a decision and the government is not insulting the courts. The government is beginning to see how best to respond to this so that we respect the courts. All these things are making the opponents of HH, the opponents of UPND, to panic. The price of mealie meal, I didn't mention, going down and so on. That's why we are seeing all this malice. So anything that happens, they are trying to exploit it, to utilize it to the end to decampaign HH, including the memorial of Mr. Sata. Lucky enough, the family did the right thing. The funeral of President Lungu, and so on. That's what is happening. So, William, I think from Choma, who was saying that
let those arguing about the Bill 7 be arguing it clause per clause.
Yes, clause per clause. They can't do that because every clause in Bill 7 is progressive. And that's why some of them now are very strong, saying that they never oppose the bill, it's the process. So let's work together, Zambians, led of course by the government through Ministry of Justice, to ensure that we can give to ourselves a good constitution where we don't have some of these lacunas, I still call them lacunas, that we have in the constitution. So Bill 7 is indeed a good law. Then the man from Kabushi, who said everyone they think would be speaking for the people is running to the ruling party, and so we don't have people to speak for us. What this man is confirming is that there is no one in the opposition today to speak for the people. And the reason is because those in the opposition have taken an antagonistic approach towards government and abusing government. Whereas if they didn't do that, they would be very credible champions of the cause of the people. We have load shedding. What is the alternative? We have free education. How are they proposing to make it better? We have CDF. Of course, there are guidelines. People are getting grants, loans, and so on. How do they think this can even be made better? There's a proposal to increase constituencies for equitable representation as prescribed in the Constitution and the mandate given to ECZ. How best do we handle this matter? It means that the people in the opposition are not doing these things. Now, on the flip side, when Frank Bwalya joins UPND, yes, for you, if you look at it from that perspective, you may think, oh, it's because Alekonka Ndalama. But now, listen to this. You come from a culture, that is Zambian culture, where we have in our tribes a lot of sayings that say, ukuli wobe takuya ng'ombe atulika erinso. Ukuli wobe takuya ng'ombe atulika erinso. Meaning that when you have somebody in an institution that knows you, they can speak for you better. They can help to champion your cause. I'm not speaking about this in the context of corruption, but in the context of speaking for people. Hear me right on that one. So if you think that I'm able to speak for the people, and I've spoken for the people in the past, and now I'm working for HH, with HH I mean, or the Udon government, isn't that something you should be celebrating? That now we have somebody uwesu waletulandirako near the president. And this is not about me, I'm talking about everyone, given that contribution from the man from Kabush. It's something that you should be celebrating, because it means that takuli kulala mba makalata, takuli kulala ishamashu dali ni chipi fie ba presidenti akabunga abantu. Eko bale ilisha nyako sana akabunga tubombele pakabunga na load shedding ba president na ichilamu. But I don't need to tell HH that. HH is a grounded leader. HH is one of us, coming from very humble background. And the challenges of this country are well known by him, and his government are doing a lot to alleviate the situation. And that was his language even yesterday in Chisamba. And we are going to do more. That's why there's even a cash for work, Indama Shama Fumo, all these initiatives, escalating social transfer, all these initiatives, grants under CDF. It's because the government understands that even drought did create a lot of disturbance in the income flows for our people. So the president knows. Don't think that we have a president that needs to be talked to by Frank Bwalya. Understand that people are suffering. Don't think that we have a president who is locked in some air-conditioned room and has no idea what happens outside there. That is not true. So let me assure you that President HH speaks for you. The ministers speak for you. The interventions they are putting in place, the programs, including the 100 megawatts Chisamba solar plant, all these things are for you, the people of this country.
Concluding remarks.
My concluding remarks is to continue calling for prayer, for love, for forgiveness, for reconciliation, because we shouldn't forget that we still have a funeral. We still have our 60th president stuck, sorry to use that word, stuck in a mortuary in a foreign land in South Africa. And it is something that can be resolved. When you go in the market today, you may not know that that is the situation Zambia is in. When you go on the streets, when you go in shops, when you ride on minibuses, it's like people have moved on. And of course, we cannot blame the people for that. But let's blame ourselves in a certain sense that this matter needs to be resolved as quickly as possible. Let us pray that President Lungu can be brought back. We give him a dignified send-off, and then we can spiritually and morally move on. We are moving on in terms of activities, but there is still that work that needs to be done. And the Bemba say, "Kamuli mochitomulele kalakulolela."
Mr. Frank Bwalya, thank you very much for your time, and for obviously we know that your your schedule is quite busy, but you still, responded to our call to host you today. We can only wish you all the best.
Please, thank you, pleasure, and God bless Zambia, God bless our leadership, and may the soul of President Edgar Lungu rest in eternal peace.
Thank you. And to you, our listeners, we are grateful that you definitely tuned in, followed our conversation, and some of you came through, some of you send your messages. We are grateful for that. And more so, we are grateful to our partner radio stations, Tuta FM in Mansa, ZFM in Kapiri, Platinum Radio in Ndola, Spice FM in Kabwe, for having carried this program. We will certainly be back this week with the Thursday edition, God willing, and make sure you don't miss. So from all of us is take care of yourselves and more so of each other. Bye-bye.
Tune in next week for another edition of The Burning Issue, and thank you for your participation.